Hello, this is Lady B, and today I am bringing you my second tutorial on how to paint your own masquerade mask. And today it's all about adding lace to your mask. Now, obviously you're going to need a couple of things. First thing is the mask blank. You can buy these online in multiples. The other thing you need, obviously, is your lace mask. Now, these, I only know of, you can find them online. I don't know any stores that carry them. Perhaps where you live they do. They are actually intended to be used as a mask by themselves. They come with ribbons that you can then tie it on with. When you order them, get more than you need. They come in batches. Let me show you. This is the bag that these came in. It came in, the ones we ordered came in a thing of 30, which was a lot, but like I said, more than we needed. And the reason for that is, while they will say they're for adults, and do get the one that's for adults, not all of them will work. This one, the eyes are so close together that unless you pull it really tight on your face, it won't work for an adult. But more importantly, it will not work on the mask. You can see how that is just too close together. So while it could still work for an adult, definitely for a child, as a lace mask by itself, it will not work on the blank. But if you get a large batch like that, there will be plenty that will. I have two examples here. There's this one I showed you before, which is very pretty, and it's, for the most part, would stay on the mask itself, which is, if you're looking for a simple project, you want one like this, where it will stay on the mask and fit on the mask. But if you don't mind doing something a little more complicated, you can also find ones like this. It's a butterfly, and you can see how that overlaps, and that is not an issue. We will stiffen that. You stiffen it with Mod Podge when it comes to that time, and it's just beautiful. And I haven't decided yet which one I'm going to do. I'm going to need to, obviously, since I'm going to paint it today. But I'm really tempted to do the butterfly one. Have to think about that. Either way, the first thing you do once you have your mask and your mask is, once again, you prime this. Before you do anything else, you take some primer. I have white primer here that I just primed my mask with. If you don't know for sure what color you're going to paint it, stick with white. If you know what you're going to do, you can go, if it's a darker colors, you can go with a gray or even a black primer. But either way, you prime it 2 coats the day before, and then you let that harden. And it's very important that you let that cure completely, so where it's completely dry, because the first thing you do is you trace around your mask. You take your mask and you put it on with, believe it or not, binder clips. You use binder clips and you clip your mask, your lace mask, onto your other mask using those clips, and then you trace around it so you can see where the edges of your lace is on your mask. And I've already drawn on this one so you can see it. And the reason for that is, as you're painting, this will let you know if you want to do a different color on the outside of your mask from your lace to the inside. You need to have that outline. Now, if you want to start with a base coat of a color first, then paint it first, that base color, and then outline. But either way, binder clips and a pencil. And that's step one. Now I have to decide which one I'm going to paint. I'm back. I changed my shirt into an older shirt that I don't care if I get paint on. And I decided to do both of them. But I'm going to start with the simple one and show you a really basic, simple way to do it. And then I will do the more complicated one. So I have already painted this. I've painted it black on the outside, and I've used an antique white on the inside. And it's not the best job, and that's just fine. This really is a very simple way to do it. I've just messily painted that. I've done 3 layers of the black and 5 of the white, plus some touch up when I wasn't paying attention and put a big old black thumbprint in the middle of the forehead. But so we have the black and the white. And now I'm going to focus the camera down and I'll show you the next step. For this, we need the lace and we need the binder clips back again. And we need Mod Podge and a sponge brush. And I'm going to coat this with the Mod Podge, starting in the middle. And then I'm going to put this on it. It's this way, I think. And I'm going to get that so that it's where I want it. And then I'm going to use these binder clips to hold it down. And you start with the bridge of the nose because it will try to pull up on the bridge. So you have to put 2 of them in the very center to hold it down on the bridge of the nose. Right there. And now I'm going to continue adding the Mod Podge, just covering the whole front of it so it all matches. And with this Mod Podge, you want to use a matte. It comes in different finishes. You want a matte finish. And the reason I use the sponge brush instead of a regular brush is it just helps me get it on quickly and smoothly. There we go. Now I've done ones where we've had to put clips here and here on the eyes, here and here. But this one is actually, because it is a simpler style, is actually staying down very nicely. So I am just going to add a clip to the end here. Because that is nice and stuck. And there we go. So, of course, now I have to let this dry. Now, the Mod Podge is dried. And you can see, remember how I said to make sure you use a matte? Look how shiny it still is, even with the matte. And it won't have dried, however, under the clips, not entirely. So at this point, we would remove the clips. And there it is. Now, you could call this done. Here we go again, huh? You could call this done, but I would like to do a little touch-up. If you look at it, you'll notice I was not very careful in my white paint and my black paint. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back in with my detail brush, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint black in the areas that it's white where I think it should be black. And I have a fresh glass of water here and my paint palette and a fresh paper towel. And this is also my chance to just straighten up my edges, make it a little prettier. There we go. Now, the texture of where I painted it is a lot flatter than where it has been Mod Podged. So to help fix that, I'm going to do one more layer of the black paint on the outside, just so it blends in better. And I'm not going to come anywhere near the edge so I don't risk painting over anything I just edged. Just going across it. Now, if the paint you used, if you didn't use a black, and the paint you used doesn't cover as well as and easily as this black does, then you may have to go in and do it a couple times to touch up those edges, to cover up whatever color it is that's there. Now, to finish this off, I will be sealing it with a clear acrylic sealer, again in matte, and letting that sit overnight. And then tomorrow we'll line this and it will be done. Okay, so the butterfly mask. Now, I have not outlined this one because with it being a butterfly, I'm going to do a little different technique behind it. I have here my colors of a white, a blue, and a red. This is not the colors I want. What I want is a pink, an lavender, and an off-white, which I have 3 choices of white here: an ivory, an antique white, and an antique parchment. And I'll decide which one of those I want to use once I have made my pink and my lavender. Normally I would not have all my paint out like this, but the technique I'm using requires wet on wet. So I'm going to have to move very, very quickly because this dries so fast, and do it in sections. But I'm going to start by coming from the edges with this white, and then immediately go and put some pink in it. And I want to blend that pink into the white that I already laid down. And this only works if your paint is still wet. It's very subtle. Gives you a kind of a blush effect. So once again, I want to work wet. So I'm putting in some pink, and then I'm coming in with the blue or the lavender, and I'm working it in with the pink. Going over the pink all the way so it goes out in a spiral, and coming back into the middle, adding a little more. Just kind of layering it as I go. And I'm paying very careful attention to the direction of my brush strokes, because in this effect, brush strokes do actually show. So that has dried, and I have this blush. And it's time to to put the lace on with the Mod Podge. So I'm going to try and do this so you can see better how I'm doing it. So once again, we start with the nose and the center of the mask. And you just cover the whole thing in the Mod Podge. There we go. Nice even layer. And then I'm place mask on. Try and match up these corners. And it looks like I have that centered. So now we take our clips and clip it down in the middle. And then we do one side. Do it where you can see. Just cover it with the Mod Podge and straighten it onto the mask. It is trying to pull away down here in this corner. So we clip it down. We want to make sure not to fill in the lace with this technique. It's very important that the lace still have all the holes. So remember how I said we were going to stiffen this with the Mod Podge? I'm going to show you a trick I use for that. I have here plastic wrap and a quart jar. And what you do, and it doesn't have to be a quart jar, it just needs to be something round and glass or ceramic, not plastic if you can. But you lay it down, you put down some plastic wrap. And then you take it and you place it over the jar. And this gets it off the ground, off of the surface, so that these things can now be stiffened with the Mod Podge. And we're going to get them wet with the Mod Podge. We don't want to fill in the holes. We just want to stiffen it. And you can use the plastic where it's sticking to it to shape how it will stay out, because however this dries is how it will be. And now we just wait for this to dry. The mask has dried, so I can now remove these clips. That is a beautiful contrast between the black and the lighter color. But in the case of this one, we're using a slightly different technique. I am now going to paint this lace because I'm using it for texture and not for color this time. I'm going to repaint it exactly the same way I did before. Only this time, I'm going to do it on the lace too. And this is why I said to make sure not to fill in the holes when you put the Mod Podge on it, because you want to keep that texture. And as you paint it, you work it into the holes, but you do not, again, make sure it does not fill in, because we want to keep this texture. And in the case of this bit that overhangs, I'm going to make sure and get the back side as well. Okay, so now that I've painted those edges, I'm going to also go in and paint the mask some more. And now that the mask is on it, and I can see how it interacts, I can touch up my earlier paint job to work with the mask, with the lace mask. Now, you're probably wondering why I bothered painting underneath at all if I'm going to be repainting it. Well, the fact is, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to get all the little spots. So you want to paint it first underneath it, what you'll want above, just in case you can't get it through there. And that does it for the white for now. Now I need to paint the pink. I'm going to come in from the middle and I'm going to make sure I get that lace really good. Again, don't fill in the holes, but make sure it's painted. And once you know for sure it's painted, then you can come back in and flick on the plain stuff to put back that gradient. And don't forget to get inside the eyes on the inside of the lace, because there will be some around the eyes. No matter what mask you use, it's not going to match exactly. So you have to also make sure and paint on that underside, any lace, and then come back and make sure you haven't filled in any holes accidentally in the process. Alright, so there's my pink. So now I need to add my lavender. And I'm going to concentrate the lavender in the very center here and just around the eyes right here. And I still have the lavender I mixed before. So now I'm not worrying so much on this one about getting it all the way down like I did on the other. A little bit here, and we do a little blending, and then I'm going to do just a little of the gradation down to blend it in that way, and then a little bit up. And the thing is, with this purple, because I'm not making sure to go down in it, it's mostly hitting the lace. So there we go. That's my paint job. At this point, I could seal this, but, and you know there's a but. There's always a but with me, isn't there? I am going to fancy it up even more. I have here a metallic gold, and I'm going to use this metallic gold to outline the butterfly. And I'm literally just going to go around the outside and add gold. And this is really easy to do because with the lace on it, it creates a raised surface that I can just literally run it along. So you don't have to have a steady hand, you don't have to be really good at it, you just run it along the lace. There we go. Now I'm also going to put gold around this center part here too. Bring some focus to the middle. So we've got some gold there in the middle now. Now I can leave it at that. I could come into any of these large open areas and add it there too if I wanted, or I can just go around the eyes, or both. So that is the painting done. The next step is to seal this and let it cure overnight, and then tomorrow we're going to decorate it some more, because of course this one has to be as fancy as possible. It is the next day, day 3, 3-day project minimum for doing this. Now I say 3 days, but when we did it as a family, we got together once a week for 6 weeks for about 4 or 5 hours, and most of that was socializing. So it can be done in 3 days, but if you take 4 or 5 or even 6, there it is just fine too. But minimum 3 days. So it is the next day, day 3, and these are the 2 masks, and they have been sealed. They were spray sealed, 2 coats, and now they both need to be lined. Now this process is exactly the same as what I did last time on the first mask, which you can see right there. When I painted these, I painted the inside at the same time because I was trying to be efficient and I was doing 2 masks at the same time. Don't do that. I got paint everywhere, as I showed you, and it got all over my hands, and I ended up putting paint in places I didn't want it. So before you seal this, though, night before, make sure you've painted at least a 1/4 inch round on each side, and that's to make sure that no matter what, you have this paper sealed. So coming no closer than a 1/4 inch, nice even coat, and down into the nose area. Then you take your fabric. This is a square. You cut this out larger than the mask by at least 1 inch. So if you're wondering how much, put the mask on it and add at least 1 inch total, if not to both sides, because you can always cut off, but you can't add. So now I put this down, making sure it's far enough that it will go on to the rest of the mask. And I, from the center, spread it out. And I smooth it out. Now the thing about this white, one of the reasons I painted the whole backside on this is I was using white on this, and the white does show. So you get funky looking rings around the inside. If you care about that sort of thing, you can just paint the whole inside and it will look nicer. Now I fold that up into the nose, and you leave the space around the edges. There we go. Make sure there's no slubs. So bending that over to leave a blank spot in the middle where it's poofed up, and I'm going to stick my finger, I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to push up in the eye area as I'm smoothing this to make sure that I have that fold. There we go. Nice and smooth. There. And I pinch that right there to make sure that it's all the way across. There we go. So that's been smoothed. And the next step is to trim the edges. I've got black everywhere from doing the other one. Now, you have to be very careful not to cut this. So, I've found going around the outside, wanting to make sure not to cut the lace, rather than coming from this way, I'm coming from this way. Either way, you know what? Either way, whichever is easiest. But you brace your scissors along the edge so you make sure that you don't cut it, the lace, and you just cut around the outside. And just remember, as you cut, you can always take away, but you can't add. So if you have to trim some more off because you didn't get enough, that's fine. But once you cut it off, it's gone. The next step is to cut out the eyes, and you start that by actually cutting a line across right through this fold. Now, I do have some lace in the eyes on these. So, as I'm cutting this out, I'm going to have to be careful not to cut any of this lace that comes around the edges of the eyes here. So I find that the easiest way to cut it is to start in the very corner, because the eye has this teardrop shape. So if I cut from this corner, it makes it easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down from this fold to the corner here, and then I'm going to start and go all the way back around. There we go. Second eye. So now I want to cut across on this bottom piece. Do this very carefully so I don't cut anything, because I'm going through the eye hole to do it. I don't want to cut anything but this. There we go. And that is there. Now we trim across the top piece and just even that out, making sure it overlaps just a little. There we go. You can actually trim it to match if you want, but whatever you do, do not cut less than. So the next step is to use the brush and go in and glue down all the edges, making sure to get the Mod Podge all the way to the edge, because we're not just gluing this down, we're also covering any of this paint on the back and sealing it. So start at the nose because it's the hardest place. And I use a brush that has a flat, it's a flat brush, if you can see. And that will just make it really easy to get in under it. Okay, so we're done with the glue. You can see how that's glued inside all the way. And that. So the next step is to put the elastic on. And this is the white elastic that comes with it. So in order to do that, we have to open up the hole. So coming from the side, this is a shish kebab skewer. You could use a toothpick, you can use whatever you have that will fit through the hole. But from the side of the felt, you just poke a hole right through. And do it on this side. Coming from this side, I'm going to take the other side that's not pointy, and I'm going to use it to push my elastic through the hole. And then I'm going to use a pair of pliers to grab that and finish pulling it through. You don't have to have the pliers, it just makes it easier. And then we tie a square knot in the elastic. And the reason for the square knot is it won't come undone, it will help it lay flat, and it will make sure that this tied end is inside the mask, not outside. So then I smooth this across to make sure it's the same. Come over here, use that to push it through again. There we go. So you could call this done. But as I said before, I'm going to make this even fancier. What I have here is some beads. Now, if you want to be done at this point, you can be done. But if you want to add anything else, this is when you do it. If you want to put lace trim around the edges, this is when you would put it on. If you want to add feathers, in this case, this is when you would put it on. In this case, I am going to be gluing on. It's these beads, and they're just these little teeny glass beads, but they will add a little sparkle. You could also use carbochons, which is the little flat plastic or glass jewels. But with this, I just want to add these. So I'm going to glue it on with my E6000. And I have a little, it's just a little piece of plastic, piece of trash that I would normally just throw away. And I'm going to put a little bit of my E6000 on it. And I'm going to use, and these are really fine pliers. You can use tweezers or anything else, but something that will make it easy. And I can grab that, dip it in the glue, and then place it. And it's done. Got some glue threads here, but you can see if the light sparkles off that so you can see them. Just a little extra something for the mask. And that's it. Making masks, masquerade masks with lace. A simple version, just 2 colors and some lace on it, or the more detailed version with painted lace and extra decoration glued on at the end. Whichever one you like, give it a try. It's a lot of fun. And I will see you next time for part 3 on how to make a masquerade mask. This is Lady B signing off. And I will see you then.
Chiamando Euridice